Hello everyone, my name is Teresa and I have chosen to talk about how Alzheimer's affects cognition. The reason I'm interested in this topic is because I work as a certified nursing assistant in a memory care facility. I think that knowing the psychological background of Alzheimer's allows caregivers to know how to keep residents safe and improve their quality of life. My topic falls under topic area number 7, Age and Effect, Behavior, Cognition. My first reference is an article from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, National Institute on Aging. I would consider this a reliable resource because the National Institute on Aging is the primary federal agency that conducts Alzheimer's disease research, and the article was recently written in 2017. The next resource is a scientific research article titled Vision and Cognition in Alzheimer's Disease. This article is a valid source because it was peer-reviewed before it was published in the journal Neuropsychologia, and the author is experienced in the research field. The last resource I will be referring to is titled Understanding Cognitive Deficits in Alzheimer's Disease, based on neuroimaging findings, by Meredith Bradsky and Paul Thompson. This research article is a valid source because it is a peer-reviewed article from Trends in Cognitive Science journal. Here are some definitions that may be useful before we begin. In an individual with Alzheimer's disease, abnormal tau will accumulate inside the neurons and create neurofibrillary tangles. Then, beta amyloid will slowly form plaques between neurons, which will cause neurons to lose their ability to communicate. The brain will begin to shrink as the neurons die. The first part of the brain that is affected is the hippocampus, the part of the brain responsible for memories and emotions. Eventually, more of the brain will be affected, leading to other cognitive abilities being impeded. Both Bradsky and Thompson found through autopsies of the brain and examination of neuroimages that cognitive performance may also be influenced by an individual's unique brain structure, connectivity created throughout one's lifetime, and vascular health. Now we will focus on a study done by Matthew Rizzo and his research team. The study suggests that Alzheimer's disease affects visual neural pathways, which in turn greater affect cognitive abilities. During this study, they tested cognition and visual perception separately through numerous visual tests. First, for visual perception, they tested visual acuity, which is basically what you would do at a doctor's office, where you read the letters off of a Snellen card. Then, they tested spatial contrast sensitivity using a Pelley chart, which we see here. Next, they tested stereopsis, which is one's perception of depth, which can be assessed through a Titmus test. For this test, if the individual sees a flat image of a fly and tries to pick it up by touching the page, there's low to no stereopsis. And if they try to grab the fly's wings in the air, there is stereopsis. Then they tested color using pseudo-isochromatic plates. Lastly, they tested visual attention through what is called a starry night task. For this test, an individual was presented with white dots against a black background, and if they were to see an addition or removal of a star, they were to click a button as quickly as possible. From these visual tests, they found that individuals with Alzheimer's performed significantly worse on spatial contrast sensitivity, visual attention, and color tests. In order to test cognition, they first performed a temporal orientation test, in which they asked the individual the current date, day of the week, and time of day. Next was the WAISR information test, which is a test on one's general knowledge in topic areas like history and geography. Then they performed a controlled oral word association test, which is when an individual is given a short amount of time to come up with words that start with the letter that is presented. Let's give this a try. Go ahead and pause the video for 30 seconds and try to think about words that start with the letter E. Here are some examples that I came up with. This test was used to assess language, memory, and processing speed. In test number 5, they tested visual spatial construction by having an individual draw out complex geometric figures with a pencil and paper. The WAISR block design was used in order to test visual constructional abilities by having an individual recreate an image with blocks as shown here. Lastly, the trail making test assessed for visual search, speed, and attention by drawing a line to connect numbers 1 through 25 in order. From the data, we see that individuals with Alzheimer's perform significantly worse in the cognitive tests than the normal controls. In conclusion, Rizzo and his research team confirmed that Alzheimer's disease affects visual areas in the occipital, temporal, and parietal lobes. In addition, they found that visual dysfunctions decrease cognitive abilities, such as memory and visual attention. Although this research utilized a handful of tests in order to make sure they accurately measured every aspect of vision and cognition, the sample size may have been too small. There were 43 individuals with Alzheimer's disease and 22 without. I think this study should be done on a much larger scale in order to be sure that these effects are caused by Alzheimer's and not just aging. However, I know that this knowledge on vision and cognition has been put to use in memory care facilities. For example, memory care facilities use disguised doors, which are hard for residents with Alzheimer's to find in order to keep them from wandering off.